The bridge standoff. Darj Taratz stood on the bridge of weight for the wheel, with his hands cuffed in front of him and an expression of cold, furious satisfaction on his face. The Yaotlek had wanted to destroy his ship. That was the first thing Mahit learned when she stepped onto the bridge. 9 Hibiscus had been ready to fire, had given the order, actually, had said destroy that skiff with the same flat certainty she used for everything, and 3 Seagrass had stopped her. The envoy had said something about discourtesy, about not shooting unarmed civilians, about the political consequences of killing a station counselor without provocation. Mahid had not heard any of this. She had been racing through corridors, her heart pounding, Iskandra's voice a steady murmur of tactical advice in her head. By the time she reached the bridge, Taratz was already aboard, already in restraints, already turning his cold gaze on her. The Yaotlek's voice was the voice of a woman who had not slept in days, who had just lost her adjutant to an alien desert, who was holding a war together with sheer force of will. Counselor Taratz, you have 5 minutes to explain why you are here. Taratz smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. I am here, he said, in flawless Teixcalanli, to retrieve my agent. He looked directly at Mahit. The bridge went very still. Ambassador Dzmare, Taratz continued, was sent to the fleet to ensure that Teixcalan remained at war, unable to win, unable to retreat. That was her mission, that was her purpose. Instead, she has spent her time making friends, building pigeons, and, if my sources are correct, sleeping with the imperial envoy. 9 Hibiscus' voice did not change. She might have been asking about the weather. Is this true? 5 Thistle, the Yaotlek security officer, moved before anyone else could react. The pulse pistol was cold under Mahit's chin before she could blink. The metal pressed against her throat, shockingly intimate, and she could feel her own pulse beating against the muzzle. She could feel Iskandra's imago screaming at the back of her mind. Tell them the truth. You have to tell them something. 3 Seagrass stepped between them. The movement was so sudden, so unexpected, that even 5 Thistle flinched. One moment, Mahit was looking at a pistol and the blank wall of the bridge. The next, she was looking at 3 Seagrass's back, 3 Seagrass's shoulders, the envoy's voice saying, quite calmly, keep talking. Envoy the Yaotlek began, keep talking, Yaotlek. You asked a question. I'm answering it. 3 Seagrass did not look at Mahit. She was looking at 9 Hibiscus, and her voice was light, almost friendly, the voice of someone making conversation at a dinner party. Yes, Mahit Desmar was sent to spy on Teixcalan. Yes, she agreed to sabotage the alien negotiations. Yes, she didn't do it. She chose not to. She decided that communication was more important than sabotage, that peace was more important than station politics, that she would rather help us than hurt us. But, that's not a spy. That's a defector, if anything. That's an asset. She lied. She lied about her original intentions. She hasn't lied about anything she's done since she arrived. The envoy gave the self-deprecating smile, the one that made her look harmless and overwhelmed and utterly non-threatening. I've been with her almost every moment. I've watched her build the language from nothing. I've watched her vomit from the alien sound and get back up and keep working. I've watched her try to save the adjutant you were so eager to sacrifice. If she's a saboteur, she's the worst one I've ever seen. Tarot's smile had frozen on his face. This is absurd. She is a stationer. She belongs to Lsel. She belongs to herself, 3 Seagrass said, and right now she belongs on this bridge, not with your hands around her throat. The pistol was still under Mahit's chin. She could feel her pulse against the metal, steady and too fast. She could feel the envoy's warmth, inches away, blocking the worst of Teretz's gaze. She could feel Iskander, quiet now, waiting. The Yaotlek looked at 3 Seagrass, looked at Taratz, looked at Mahit. Release her, 9 Hibiscus said. 5 Thistle lowered the pistol. 5 Thistle lowered the pistol. Mahit sagged. Her knees wanted to buckle. She locked them. 3 Seagrass caught her elbow, steadying her, and for a moment they stood there, the two of them, holding each other up on the bridge of a warship, while a Lsel counselor glared and the Yahulek of 6 legions made decisions that would determine the fate of 2 civilizations. Call your adjutant, 3 Seagrass said. Right now, call him. He's still alive down there. I know he is. And if anyone can talk to the aliens, really talk to them, it's 20 Cicada. 9 Hibiscus' face flickered with something that might have been hope or grief or fury, hard to tell, on a face trained for years not to show feeling. To foam, the Yaotlek said. Open the channel. Eight Antidote sends the counter order. In the city, Eight Antidote was running. He had left his cloud hook on the subway. It was the first thing he had done after walking out of Palace East, boarded the number 7 line, sat down in an empty seat. He had set it on the seat beside him. Then he had gotten off at the next stop, changed to a northbound shuttle, and left the cloud hook behind. The second strongest key in Takes Cullen, abandoned on a subway seat like a forgotten glove. And if anyone was tracking him, they would track the cloud hook, not the boy. He had one thing in his pocket, a bone infofeach stick, sealed with his own imperial sign. On it was an order he had written himself, in the quiet of his room. With the spearhead hidden in his shirt drawer and the weight of the Emperor's confession pressing on his chest. The order was short, 3 lines. The Emperor's authority forbids the use of civilization, destroying weapons or tactics against the inhabited planetary system currently designated as enemy territory. This prohibition extends to nuclear shatter bombs, planetary scale incendiaries, and any other weapon that would render a civilization extinct or a planet uninhabitable. By Imperial Seal. It was a forgery. It was also the most real thing Eight Antidote had ever done. He reached Nasturtium Terminal in 40 minutes, breathing hard, his palms sweating. The Information Ministry kiosk was exactly where it had been on his first visit. 2 board officials sitting behind a counter littered with infofiche readers and routing manifests. One of them, a young woman with the number 2 marigold stitched on her collar, looked up as he approached. "I need to send this," he said. He held up the infofeach stick. "Fastest courier." Imperial Override. 2 marigold blinked. Imperial Override requires, I know what it requires. Eight Antidote drew himself up to his full height, which was not very much, and summoned every scrap of Imperial authority he had spent the last year learning to project. "I'm Eight Antidote, the Emperor's 90% clone, the associate heir. This is the Emperor's personal infofiche stick, sealed correctly, and she sent me because I run the fastest." "Do you want to be the person who delayed an imperial order?" 2 Marigold looked at her colleague. The colleague shrugged. Neither of them wanted to be the person who delayed an imperial order. "How fast?" she asked. "Fast as possible. 5 hours less. That'll require a dedicated courier. We don't have find one." 2 Marigold found one. A shard pilot named For Crocus on mail courier duty, berthed at the terminal. Eight Antidote watched the infofiche stick disappear into the pilot's hand, watched her verify the seal, watched her nod once sharp, professional, and turn toward her ship. "How long to reach the fleet?" he asked. 5.5 hours, point to point. Faster if the jump gates are clear. They'll be clear. He did not know if that was true. He did not know if any of this would work. He only knew that the order was on its way, hurtling through space toward a warship at the edge of an alien war, and that he had done everything he could, almost everything. He turned to the shard pilot. "I need to see your ship." For Crocus raised an eyebrow. "Why?" "Because I need to be inside shard sight, and you're the only pilot I know." She looked at him for a long moment. She saw a child 11 years old, skinny, with a bleeding scratch on his cheek from the subway derailment, and eyes that were too old for his face. She saw the seal on the infofeach stick. She saw the way he held himself, like someone who had already made a decision and was simply waiting for the world to catch up. "All right," she said. "Come on." Eight Antidote enters shard sight. The shard was smaller than Eight Antidote had expected. A cockpit really barely large enough for a single pilot, and now him squeezed into the space behind the pilot's chair, his knees drawn up to his chest. The walls were alive with light, readouts and trajectories and the strange flickering patterns of shard sight, the network consciousness that let shard pilots feel each other across jump gate distances. "Don't touch anything," For Crocus said. "Don't think too loud. Don't try to reach anyone unless you know exactly what you're doing." "I know what I'm doing," Eight Antidote said, and hoped it was true. She closed the cockpit. The light intensified, and then Eight Antidote was nowhere, everywhere, falling through a void of shared sensation that stretched across light years and jump gates and the infinite dark between stars. He died twice in the first 30 seconds. The first death was a pilot in the 17th Legion. Her shard was hit, and she died with a scream that rippled through the network like a stone thrown into water. Eight Antidote felt the heat of the blast, the sudden vacuum, the impossible cold. He felt her heart stop. He felt the silence afterward where her mind had been. The second death was a pilot whose shard had been breached. Eight Antidote felt the burning start at his hands, hands that were not his and spread inward through arms and chest and throat. The pilot's consciousness fragmented into 1,000 separate points of agony, each one transmitted clean through the network, and then into nothing. Not a fast death. A death that took long enough for the pilot to know every second of it. Eight Antidote was weeping, somewhere in a body that felt very far away. He could feel the tears on his face, distant and irrelevant, belonging to a boy in a cockpit who was not dying, not yet, but who was feeling everyone else die. Please, he thought. He didn't know if he was speaking aloud or thinking. Please, I need to find the pilot carrying the message from 3 Azimuth, the Shatterbomb order. I need to stop it. The network did not answer. It was too large, too loud, too full of dying. Eight Antidote, the old Emperor's clone. I need to A presence coalesced. And a single shard pilot, somewhere in the 24th Legion, carrying a priority message from the Minister of War to the fleet captain. The pilot's consciousness was a bright, focused point of light, all duty and determination, and a deep, unshakable loyalty to the chain of command. Lose the message, Eight Antidote said. Please. It's wrong. It's false. The Emperor didn't send it. The Ministry sent it without authorization. If you deliver that message, millions of people will die. A whole civilization. Lose it. The pilot's consciousness wavered. Doubt flickered through the linked doubt, and something else. Recognition. I know who you are, the pilot thought back. You're the kid, the clone. From the news broadcasts, yes. And I'm telling you that order is a lie. Please, lose it. Tell them you had a malfunction. Tell them the info feature was corrupted. Tell them anything. Just don't deliver it. A long pause. The network hummed with other voices, other deaths, other fears. If I lose this message, the pilot said, how do I know the dying will stop? Eight Antidote made a promise he did not know he could keep. Because I'm going to stop it. All of it. The dying, the war, everything. I just need you to lose that message. The pilot's consciousness flickered, and then the light dimmed, deliberately, like someone closing their eyes. All right, the pilot said. I never received it. There was a malfunction. I hope you know what you're doing. So do I, Eight Antidote thought. 20 Cicada joins the hive mind. On Peloa 2, 20 Cicada swallowed the fungus. He had been holding the cube for 7 hours. His legs had gone numb from sitting cross-legged on the sand. And the 2 aliens, the ones Mahit had called third and fourth, had watched him with their forward-facing predator eyes, their long necks curved in what he had come to recognize as patient curiosity. The cube was full of white, friable matter, dried fungus scraped from the corpse of the first alien the fleet had killed. 20 Cicada had shown it to third and fourth, the 7. He had pointed at the fungus, then at his mouth. He had made eating motions. The aliens had watched, and their ears had pricked forward, and they had made a sound that might have been approval or might have been warning. The pigeon did not have words for either. He did not think of himself as a brave man. He thought of himself as a practical one, a homeostat cultist, a believer in balance, in the idea that systems could be corrected if you were willing to introduce the right input. The aliens were a distributed system. The collective was out of balance. A foreign graft, a human mind, a human consciousness hooked into the fungal network that connected all of the hive mind would do a lot of good. Or it would kill him. Either way, it was data. He opened the cube. The fungus was dry, odorless, almost weightless. It looked like crushed chalk. It tasted like nothing at first, and then it tasted like copper, and then it tasted like something he had no words for. The taste of alien biology, of a mind that was not a mind, of a consciousness that was not individual but collective, a we that stretched across light years and bodies and time in a way that made his human sense of self seem impossibly small. The world dissolved. He was 20 Cicada, and he was not 20 Cicada. He was a body on a desert, cross-legged in the sand, and he was also the sand, the sky, the alien ships in orbit, the fleet warships waiting beyond them. He was the fungus growing through his bloodstream, sending filaments into his brain, herniating through his soft palate in a bloom of white that would have killed a normal human in minutes. He was not dying. The fungus was not attacking him. It was integrating him, the way it integrated every other part of the collective. Hello, he tried to say, and the word came out as a frequency, a vibration, a fractal scatter song that made the aliens tilt their heads and croon. Hello, we. I am here. I am your foreign graft. Let's talk, the we responded, not in words, the we did not have words, not the way humans had words, but in sensation, in pattern, in the shape of an unfamiliar body lodging like a garnet in the matrix of a stone. The collective was curious. The collective was afraid. The hive mind had been shown a person maker, an imago machine, a way to preserve consciousness across death, and the aliens had interpreted it as poison, as an attack on the very concept of collective being. You showed us you're dead, the we said, in a language of light and vibration and chemical signal. You brought us poison. Why? It's not poison, 20 Cicada said. It's a tool, a way for individuals to persist. We didn't know the aliens would see it as an attack. We didn't know you were a we. The collective considered this. The collective had no concept of individual persistence. Bodies died and were recycled. Consciousness was collective, eternal, distributed across all the bodies of the we. The idea of a single consciousness lasting beyond a single body was strange. Alien, threatening in ways the hive mind was still trying to understand. You kill us, the we said. You burn our bodies. You do not recycle us. You are wasteful. Yes, 20 Cicada said. We are wasteful. We are also trying to stop. That's why I'm here, to stop. How? By talking, by being a graft, by showing the collective that we are not meat. We are persons. And, Lsel, like you, not like you in shape, but like you in mind. We think, we feel, we die, and we mourn our dead, and we want the dying to stop. The we was quiet for a long time, or what felt like a long time, in the timeless space of the collective consciousness. 20 Cicada could feel the hive mind thinking, processing, integrating his presence the way an immune system integrates a vaccine. He was foreign material. He was also information. The aliens were learning from him, even as he was learning from the collective. We will stop, the we said finally. We will stop the killing if you stop the killing. We will talk if you talk. But the ones approaching our home, the ones with fire, the aliens approaching must stop too. 20 Cicada felt a spike of fear. The fleet, 16 moonrise, the shatter bomb strike. Give me a channel, he said. Let me talk to my people. I can stop them. The we considered. Then, slowly, with the care of a creature handling something fragile and unfamiliar, the collective gave him a channel. The ceasefire begins. On wait for the wheel, the comms console crackled to life. 20 Cicada's voice flooded the bridge. It was syncopated, strange, as if he were assembling words from first principles and had forgotten the rhythm of human speech. One, singing, he said, and there was a pause. And again, singing, oh we swarm? 9 Hibiscus voice broke. Mahit had never heard the Yadalek's voice break before. Is that you? Yes, the adjutant's voice said. Mostly, yes we are. It's appropriate, that name. Hello, Mallow. Hello, we. Our wait for the wheel. Mallow, the fleet. Hello, we are talking now. This is good. This is ceasefire. Ceasefire if you stop. We. Ceasefire if you stop. The words were wrong, the syntax fractured, but the meaning was unmistakable. The aliens were willing to stop fighting. The collective was willing to negotiate. All the fleet had to do was stand down. 9 Hibiscus stood motionless at the comms console, her hand hovering over the transmitter. Mahit could see the war playing out behind the Yaotlek's eyes, the shard pilot she had killed with her own order, the funeral orations, the planets gone dark, the colonists eviscerated with their cloud-hook glass stolen. She could see the commander weighing the cost of mercy against the cost of genocide. Swarm, 9 Hibiscus said. Can you confirm the fleet captain is approaching the alien home system? Her flagship is carrying shatter bombs. Can you, Mallow? What remained of 20 Cicada said, and his voice was suddenly clearer, more human, as if some part of him had surfaced from the collective consciousness for just a moment. I know. We see her. The we sees her. She is not stopping. Can you stop her? A long pause. Mahit could hear static, and behind the static, something that might have been the sound of a hive mind thinking. We can, the voice from Paluatu said, but you have to let us. You have to tell us it's all right. You have to give us the coordinates. The bridge went utterly silent. 9 Hibiscus closed her eyes. Mahit could see her imagining it. the parabolic compression, eternal-class flagship of the 24th Legion, with 6,000 souls aboard, 16 Moonrise at its helm, ignoring stand-down orders, racing toward a planet she intended to burn. The shatter bombs in her hold, the shard pilots linked in their network of shared sensation, all of them aflame with triumph and vicious anticipation. The fleet captain had been a political officer once, placed on the same ship by the Third Palm. She had been sent to distract 9 Hibiscus, to undermine her, to make her fail. She had watched everything, reported everything. She had helped plan a genocide. She was also a fleet captain. She was also Teixcalanli. Mallow, the adjutant's voice said again. We need the coordinates. 9 Hibiscus opened her eyes. 2 Foam, the Yaotlek said. Give the hive mind the exact approach vector of the parabolic compression. Bridge target only. Damage sufficient to disable, not destroy. Do you understand, Swarm? I want the crew to survive. We understand, what remained of 20 Cicada said. Bridge only. Crew survives. We will try. That's all I ask, 9 Hibiscus said. She gave the order, she gave the coordinates, and then she stood on the bridge of her flagship, with her hands clenched at her sides and her adjutant's voice still echoing in the comms console, and she waited. 16 Moonrise falls. The war dissolved around them. 9 Hibiscus gave the coordinates. On the bridge of wait for the wheel, they waited. 2 Foam read out the changes in sequence enemy ring ships going still, the 17th Legion reporting full retreat, the parabolic compression signal flaring on the cartograph and then going dark. Escape pods launching, the alien ships not pursuing, the silence afterward. 9 Hibiscus did not move from the comms console. Mahit watched the Yaotlek's shoulders, the rigid line of her spine, the way her hands stayed clenched at her sides even after the signal went dead. 16 Moonrise had been on the bridge when it was hit, 6,000 souls aboard, and most of them had made it to the pods, but the fleet captain had died with her ship the way fleet captains were supposed to die. 40 minutes after 9 Hibiscus gave the coordinates, a courier ship arrived from the city. It carried a single info-feature stick, sealed with the imperial sign of 8 Antidote. The message was 3 lines long. The Emperor's authority forbids the use of civilization, destroying weapons or tactics against the inhabited planetary system currently designated as enemy territory. The Yaotlek read the message aloud to the bridge crew. Then she laughed, a short, sharp sound that was half disbelief and half exhausted relief. An 11-year-old, she said. An 11-year-old just saved a civilization. Mahit looked at Three Seagrass. Three Seagrass looked back at her. Neither of them said anything. There was nothing to say. The war was over. The ceasefire was holding. 20 Cicada was alive, or something close to alive, and the aliens were willing to talk, and the Emperor's heir had forged an imperial order to stop a genocide. First Doctor and a nation. I need to go to the hydroponics deck, Mahit said. Three Seagrass nodded. I'll go with you. Mahit chooses Exile. Everything on the hydroponics deck was green. The air was thick and humid, almost too lush to breathe. There were flowers everywhere, lotuses, lilies, the same flowers that 20 Cicada had painted on the underside of the canopy for the first contact meeting. The rice paddies were full, the vegetable gardens flourishing, the whole space a riot of living things in the middle of a warship that had been built for destruction. Mahit walked through it slowly. She was thinking about Lsel, about the graphic novel she had bought in a kiosk, the one about Eshiraker Lut and Cameron and the anti-heritage rebellion, about the kids who had made that comic, the ones she had never known, the ones who had grown up in a station she had left behind, about Tarats who had told her never to come home. The counselor had been explicit about that. In the quiet of the conference room after the bridge standoff, Mahit had tried to argue for stationer diplomatic leadership, for the value of collective memory, for the ways in which Lsel's imago technology might bridge the gap between human individuality and alien collectivity. Tarats had listened with his cold, furious eyes, and when she finished, he had said, "Don't ever come home, Desmare, just like that. No appeal, no process." She was exiled from Lsel, cut off from the station that had sent her to Teixcalan in the first place, and there was nothing she could do about it. Three Seagrass found her by the lotuses. She was holding 2 cups of something hot tea, probably, from the fleet's endless supply of caffeine. "You're not going back to Lsel?" Three Seagrass said. It was not a question. "No. And you're not coming back to the city?" Mahit looked at her. Three Seagrass's face was calm, composed, the face of an information specialist who had learned to control her expressions years ago. But her hands, the hands holding the tea, were trembling. "Do you want me to?" Mahit asked. "I want you to do what you want to do." Three Seagrass set one of the cups down on the edge of the rice paddy. "But yes, I want you to come back with me. I want to show you the city the way it should be shown, not as an ambassador's liaison, not as a political assignment, but as—" She stopped, took a breath. "Do you want to come back with me?" Mahit thought about it. She thought about the city, with its spiral towers and its elevated walkways and its flowers everywhere. She thought about being a barbarian in the heart of the empire, about 16 moonrises suspicion and 9 hibiscus grudging respect, and the constant, exhausting work of being a person between two cultures that neither understood nor trusted each other. She thought about Iskander's memories, still tangled in her brainstem, still blurring the line between who she was and who he had been. She thought about the emperor, who had helped kill Iskander, who had been willing to commit genocide, who had told Eight Antidote that being emperor meant being able to do the terrible thing. No, she said. Three Seagrass flinched. No, I can't go back to the city. Not yet, maybe not ever. I need to be somewhere that isn't Lsel and isn't Teixcalan. I need to figure out who I am when I'm not a stationer hoping to be imperial, or an imperial who used to be a stationer. She stopped. Iskander was speaking in the back of her head, a quiet murmur that was becoming harder and harder to distinguish from her own thoughts. "Tell her you love her," Iskander said. "It's a kinder offer than any I ever had. Tell her the truth." "I need to be able to say yes and mean it," Mahit said. "If you ask me again a third time, I want to be able to say yes and mean it." Three Seagrass was quiet for a moment, then she reached out and took Mahit's hand. The touch was warm, familiar, the same hand that had pressed against Mahit's spine on the desert of Pelawatu, the same hand that had cupped her face in the dark of their shared bunk. "There are other systems," Three Seagrass said, "other planets, Teixcalanli colonies, diplomatic outposts, places where a person with your skills could be useful. You could go to one of them." "And I could," she swallowed. "I could write to you. Letters. Through the jump gate mail. They'd take a while to arrive, but they'd arrive." "You'd write to me?" "Every week, every day if I could. I'd send you everything, gossip from the ministry, poems I was reading, arguments I was having with my superiors. You'd never be able to escape me." Mahit felt something loosen in her chest. It was not happiness, exactly, but it was close. It was the feeling of a door opening after a very long time of doors closing. "It'd like that," she said. "It'd write back. It'd tell you about the aliens. I think I'm going to end up negotiating with the collective again, eventually. The hive mind is going to need someone who understands collectivity, someone with an imago." Three Seagrass squeezed her hand. "You're never going to stop being the most interesting person I've ever met, are you?" Mahit turned her hand so their fingers laced together. "I hope not," she said. They stood together in the green quiet of the hydroponics deck, hand in hand, while the fleet around them adjusted to peace and the aliens waited in their ring ships to begin the long, difficult work of learning to talk. The Emperor thanks Eight Antidote. In the city, Eight Antidote was brought before the Emperor. He had been extracted from Shard Site by the Sunlit the Algorithm merged citizens who served as the Emperor's eyes and ears and hands. They had pulled him out of the network gently, carefully, like surgeons removing a splinter. He had returned to his body with a gasp, shaking, the echo of other pilots' deaths still reverberating in his skull. Four Crocus had given him water. 13 Mune had wrapped a blanket around his shoulders. Neither of them had asked what he had done. He knew what he had done. He had stopped a genocide. He had forged an imperial order. He had entered Shard Site without authorization and nearly died twice in the process. He had deceived the Emperor, or if not deceived exactly, then certainly acted against her explicit wishes. He expected to be punished. He expected to be imprisoned. He expected, at the very least, to be sent away. Instead, the Emperor gave him tea. Her suite was unchanged, the same white walls, the same view of the spiral towers, the same humming insects in the garden outside. Eight Antidote sat in the same chair he had occupied hours earlier when he had walked out on the Emperor and her cassava bread and her terrible decisions. The tea was hot and sweet and smelled of flowers. The Sioux stopped the Shatterbomb strike, the Emperor said. The ceasefire is holding. The aliens are talking. Fleet Captain 16 Moonrise is dead, but her crew survived. The war is over. Yes, Eight Antidote said. You forged an Imperial order. Yes. You entered Shard Site without authorization and nearly died. Yes. The Emperor set down her teacup. She looked at Eight Antidote for a long moment, her dark eyes unreadable. Then she reached across the table and took his hand. I'm not going to punish you, she said. Eight Antidote stared at her. You're not? No. You did the right thing. You did what I couldn't do, what I wouldn't let myself do. You saw a terrible decision, and you found a third option. That's what I've been trying to teach you, I think. Not how to do the terrible thing. How to find another way to do it. Her grip tightened on his hand. I told you the truth, earlier, about Iskander, about Sixth Direction, about Nakar. I told you those things because you needed to know what being emperor meant. But I didn't tell you everything. She paused. Being emperor also means knowing when to stop being the emperor, when to let someone else make the decision, when to trust that the people you've chosen, the Yaolex you've appointed, the heirs you've raised will make better choices than you could. That Eight Antidote felt tears prick at his eyes. He blinked them away fiercely. 11 Laurel didn't want you to know about the shard trick, he said. He was hiding it from you. The proprioception link, the shared consciousness. He said it was a war ministry secret. I know. The Emperor's voice was very calm. I suspected for some time that 11 Laurel's ambitions exceeded his loyalty. They all did. You've just confirmed it. Thank you. What will you do to him? Watch him, closely. And when he makes a mistake, as he will, eventually I will be ready. She released his hand, sat back. You've earned a rest, little spy. Go to your room, sleep. Eat something. The war is over. You can be a child for a little while. Eight Antidote stood up. He was still wearing Four Crocus blanket around his shoulders. He felt scraped raw, hollowed out, as if every emotion he had ever had been wrung out of him and replaced with exhaustion. Thank you, he said. Don't thank me, the Emperor said. Just be the Emperor I can't be when it's your turn. He left the Emperor's suite. He walked through the corridors of Palace East to his room. He crawled into his bed. He did not tell the Emperor that the shard consciousness was still humming at the back of his mind, a faint echo of the network he had touched and could not quite let go. He did not tell her that he could still hear the pilots dying. He did not tell her that he was not sure anymore where Eight Antidote ended and something else began. He would carry that secret for a long time. Maybe forever. He was learning the price of doing the right thing. He closed his eyes. Somewhere, in the quiet of his room, the spearhead with the old blood and the hologram of a laughing emperor waited in his shirt drawer. The war was over. The aliens were talking. 20 Cicada was alive inside the Wii. And Eight Antidote, the boy who had been a spy and a forger and a shard-sighted interventionist, the boy who had refused to be a vessel for his ancestors' immortality, was still himself. He slept. Postlude. The hive mind learns language. On Paloatu, 20 Cicada sat cross-legged in the sand and waited for a shuttle. He was no longer alone. The Wii was with him, a constant hum of presence, of fractal scattersong and chemical signal, and the quiet, growing awareness of what it meant to be a person with language. The Wii had call signs now, or the collective had always had call signs, and he was only now able to understand them. LEAP, who designed buildings, Gray Pattern, who was young and curious and had been the first to approach the humans. Sweetling, who was very old and very wise and thought in frequencies 20 Cicada could barely perceive. Cleverer than Littermates, who was the one who had decided the person maker was poison and who was now slowly reconsidering. And Swarm, a laughing name now, a name that meant the one who came from outside and stayed. The Wii was thinking about language. It was a strange thing. From the collective's perspective, a way of encoding information in sound, in vibration, in marks on surfaces. The Wii had never needed language before. The hive mind had the fungal network, the shared consciousness, the direct transmission of thought and sensation. Language was inefficient. Language was lossy. Language was 20 Cicada was beginning to understand the only way to talk to someone who was not part of the we. He was trying to show the collective how it worked. He was sitting in the sand, drawing pictures, making sounds, building a bridge out of the wreckage of a 20-word pigeon. It would take years. It would take lifetimes. The Wii was patient, and what remained of 20 Cicada, what the fungus had made of him, had time. The shuttle would come eventually. The fleet would retrieve him, or what was left of him, and he would go back to wait for the wheel and explain to Nine Hibiscus what he had become. He would tell her about the ceasefire, about the negotiations that would follow, about the long, slow work of teaching a hive mind to understand the concept of individual. But for now, he sat in the sand and watched the stars come out over Palua, and listened to the wee thinking in fractal scattersong. The war was over, the talking had begun. And 20 Cicada, who had been Swarm, who had been an adjutant, who had been a homeostat cultist with green ink tattoos and a belief in balance, 20 Cicada was still here, still himself, still part of something larger than himself, and the world was one step closer to understanding. It was enough. It was more than enough. It was a kind of peace. The story you just heard ends with Mahit choosing exile, not the city, not joint exile with Three Seagrass, not a return to Lsel, correspondence, letters across the distance. It is a third path, not tragedy, not triumph. 20 Cicada sits in the sand on Paloa 2, beginning to teach a hive mind what language is. Eight Antidote carries a trauma he cannot explain. The war is stopped, not won. The person who built these endings is, in her other life, Dr. Anna Linden Weller, a historian of the Byzantine Empire and a professional city planner. She publishes fiction as Arkady Martin. Her academic work focuses on borderlands, on how empires absorb the cultures at their edges, and on how political systems justify their own persistence. This is not someone who researched imperialism from the outside. This is someone whose day job is understanding why empires work and what they cost the people inside them. You can feel that expertise in the Tates Calanley Empire. It is not a generic evil regime. It seduces as effectively as it conquers through poetry, through administrative competence, through the genuine belief that becoming Tates Calanley is an upgrade. 19 Ads is capable of authorizing genocide and also capable of genuine love, genuine statecraft. Martin's training means the Empire has an internal logic that makes it more dangerous on the page than any cartoon villain. The imago technology, the neural implant that carries dead minds into living bodies, is where Martinese scholarship cuts deepest. Real empires have always wrestled with the problem of institutional continuity. How does power outlast a single human life? Hereditary succession, ancestor cults, the bureaucratic archive all historical answers to that question. The imago is the technological extreme of the impulse, and the novel treats it not as a thought experiment, but as a political weapon. Amnerdbat's sabotage, Tarot's manipulation, 19 Ads' decision to kill Yuskander rather than let Sixth Direction become immortal, these are acts of memory politics. They land with historical weight because Martine understands what is at stake when a society controls its own record of the past. That refusal of easy resolution, the insistence that communication across difference is a fragile beginning, not a victory, is the mark of the historian's eye. A Desolation Called Peace won the Hugo Award for Best Novel in 2022. The recognition isn't a quality score. It's a signal that the field was ready for a first contact story this specific in its ambitions. A story about people who make hard choices inside systems they cannot escape, and who find, in the wreckage, a place to start talking.